Good evening, everybody. Happy Friday. The weekend is here. I'm Nate Eaton. Thanks for being with me tonight on Courtroom Insider, our final show from Phoenix, at least for this trial. I'll be back in a few weeks for the sentencing, and we'll do a couple of Courtroom Insiders, but we are winding down here. I'm so glad that you've watched over the past few weeks, including this trial and the other trial. And boy, we have a packed program tonight. I'm so glad that you're here. Some of the things we're going to go over in just moments. Justin Lum from Fox 10 Phoenix will be here. He wrapped up an interview with Brandon Boudreaux this afternoon. He's going to give us a little preview of it and what he had to say. Also, prosecutor Rachel Smith reacts to the verdict that came down. Was she surprised? And does she think Melani Pawlowski will be charged? Her answer might surprise you. The interview I've been waiting for years. Officer Marianne Robb. She's the woman who was called when Charles Vallow was complaining about Lori, his wife, and she had was having a mental breakdown, and he just got home from Texas and wanted to go into the hotel to get his stuff. Anyway, she's here. She's going to talk about it all. And the thing that I found most surprising, there's a lot of aspects of this case she hasn't really been following by her own choice. She has not wanted to know. We also have a collection of videos that you all sent in giving me your key piece of evidence that you thought from the trial that you thought was the key piece of evidence. We'll break that all down and so much more. So why don't we jump to it? A couple of things I want to say. Many of you have emailed asking if I'm going to interview Brandon. Brandon has told me, yes, that day will come. We had dinner together last night. It was all off the record, and he has surrounded himself by awesome friends and family who have just supported him through this whole thing. So that interview will be coming. It might not be next week or next month, but the interview will be coming. In the meantime, he did speak with Justin Lum today, and I wanted to ask Justin about it. So just a minute ago, I spoke with Justin, and here's what he had to say. All right, Justin, you just wrapped up an interview with Brandon Boudreaux. How was it?
This is the first time I've ever interviewed Brandon. You know that he has not spoken publicly many times at all. He's done really one interview with the press at the beginning of this whole saga, and it was just it was closure, I think, for everyone that's been involved in this case and followed it like we have. But it was good to see how he's relieved that he has justice finally. You can see like a weight has been lifted off of his shoulders. And he just, I said to him, this is the first morning you wake up without this case, in front of you. Because I think you would imagine for 5.5 years, every day you wake up and it's in the back of your mind. So I think you could see that he's just ready to start a new chapter.
Right. Let's talk a little bit about you. Here we are toward the end almost. We have a sentencing. And what were your thoughts of this last trial that just wrapped up yesterday?
I think I was shocked to see how quick it went. And I'm just talking about the 5 to 6 days of trial. And then, of course, the jury deliberation that took only 15 minutes. Once again, we have two trials where the state had slated out, 5 to 6 weeks at first for the first Arizona trial regarding Charles Vallow. And then all of a sudden, this one, they said, okay, it's going to take a week to 2 weeks. And really 6 days. I mean, I think that was a shock at first, but also Lori Daybell not having anyone to testify for her on her defense, and she once again did not testify on her own behalf.
And not only a quick trial, but a quick verdict. I mean, less than 30 minutes, it seemed.
Because I was talking to, we can shout out Vincent Funari now, the PIO for the court there, Maricopa County Superior Court, and we're just checking in with him. Okay, jury's here, they've arrived, they're trickling in or whatnot. They enter the room, and then really when they started the deliberations, it was about 10:15, and we got word that the verdict had been reached at 10:30. So it makes you wonder, was the decision already made the day before, and they said, let's go sleep on it. It's been a long week, and then, yesterday morning, they just finalized the decision.
Justin, the full interview with Brandon, you haven't aired yet, or have you? Tell everybody where they can watch it.
So we are working on uploading that as we speak. I can't tell you exactly what time, the beauty of technology, and hopefully it cooperates with us, but Fox 10 Phoenix. It's our YouTube channel. Subscribe there and you'll see all of our coverage on the case. And we spoke for about 30 to 40 minutes at length. It was a great conversation. There are still some things that he can't talk about in this case regarding his ex-wife, Melani Pawlowski, who we know through this trial. Trina Kay, the prosecutor, said that she is involved as an alleged co-conspirator. This is definitely an open case. I think she didn't hold back on that at all, that was surprising to me. So just so everyone knows, she has not been charged, but that's something that Brandon can't talk about at the moment.
Yeah, it's still under investigation. So tonight, after Courtroom Insider, go to Fox 10 Phoenix on YouTube and you can find that interview. And if it's not there, just give it a little bit of time. Hopefully it's uploaded tonight. Justin, last question. Are you still going to be texting me court documents at 5 in the morning, 6 in the morning, 7 in the morning? Or can I sleep in?
As long as you keep sending them my way, I think it's been
Okay.
good to have that collaboration and just, make sure that we're on the same page. I think, especially in a time that we live in right now in 2025, where, the press is so important to our community, to the country, to have this collaboration and camaraderie rather than, competition is great, but you know what I mean? Like for us to support each other from two different markets throughout the past 5 to 6 years. It's been great. And obviously, there's going to be more motions filed. We're going to have a sentencing on July 25th. We're going to be waiting for extradition for Lori from Arizona to Idaho, and then getting that last booking photo. We're going to be on top of our phones and emails with the PIO there at Pocatello, and making sure that we really put this to bed and do it the right way because so many people rely on our coverage in this case. So, anyways, long story short, I'll still be bothering you.
And I'll still bother you too. So yeah, I didn't realize one more booking photo. What does that make it? Like 8 or 9, something like that. We'll have to count.
We're going to use this, but we can count this right now. So Kauai arrested February 2020.
Right.
And then there's a second Kauai booking photo in the orange jumpsuit.
Yep.
And then you go to Rexburg, Idaho, in Madison County. Then after that,
She went to the state hospital.
Ada County.
Yeah, but I think she had 2 in Rexburg because she went to the state hospital, then came back and got another one. So
Exactly. So
and then Ada,
Ada,
and then the prison,
prison booking photo, the first one in Idaho. And then you have
Maricopa.
Arizona.
Right.
And then after Arizona, it's going to be Idaho again.
So eight mugshots. Wow. That's a
Yeah.
lot.
We don't have any, and we're going to keep it that way.
Yeah, keep your mugshot off East Idaho News, just like the shirt says. All right, Justin, have a good weekend.
All right. Happy Father's Day.
Oh, you too. Thanks. We'll see you. All right. Big thanks to Justin for keeping us informed on the Phoenix side of things. Now let's jump straight over to prosecutor Rachel Smith. Of course, I've checked in with her through this whole trial. You've seen her here. She's been a great person to give us legal insight into the system. And she was on Lori Vallow's prosecution team during the first trial in Idaho back in 2023. I asked her what she thought of the verdict.
I was thrilled for Brandon. I was thrilled for Maricopa County that their hard work, their effort, their decision to go forward led to such quick results and justice for Brandon. He deserved his day in court, and I'm really glad the jury saw the truth of what he was saying.
I know you and I had talked before the trial that this maybe could have been the hardest case to prove because, you have a living victim who's alive. He wasn't killed. And just because of a variety of different factors. So as the prosecution laid out their case, what did you think of it?
I still think it was one of the hardest cases the state had. It was pure circumstantial. You had a victim who survived, who couldn't ID their shooter, who couldn't even definitively say, how many shots had been fired. And much like with Tammy's case, he initially worried it was a paintball gun, right? And those sort of things jurors can latch onto. But I'm really grateful that the jury they listened all along. They saw the clarity of what happened and the state's story showed them the truth.
Trina, at one point, when Lori, they kept saying she was opening the door, and the judge sent the jury out. She flat out said, "We weren't planning to introduce the light and the dark stuff. We weren't planning to introduce religious or the cult or even the financial motives." But Lori kind of went down that route. Why wouldn't you bring that stuff in? I mean, that was pretty strong evidence. We heard about it in your cases in Idaho. We heard about it in Charles's, but nothing at all here.
When you have a case that you think is clean enough, straight enough, and the evidence is clear enough, you take the extraneous details out. So when you have something where you believe in the strength of the evidence you have, you kind of stick with your core. The more you inject, the more chance there is for confusion, and a confused jury makes mistakes. And so the last thing you want is what I call a wrongful acquittal when you've overthought your case. So in this instance, the prosecution believed very strongly that the evidence they had in Brandon, who is an amazing witness, and that the evidence that they had to show Lori's participation and contribution to the conspiracy was strong enough without all the other stuff. You got to remember they had one victim, one day in question. They had a pretty tight nucleus. And if you believed Lori helping move the tire, Lori renting the equipment, renting the storage unit, Lori doing the Google search, the geolocation data for Alex, if you believe that is strong enough of and in itself to convict of conspiracy, then you don't add things that can confuse a jury. That case with Brandon is really different than what we had in Idaho. We had multiple victims over a span of months. And so for the case in Idaho with multiple victims involving the defendant's own children, you really have to show the motive, intent, and that overarching conspiracy. So there were really different cases, and the one with Brandon is much tighter, much more nuclear, and can be tried more simply.
Trina K must have followed your advice by putting Brandon on the stand first. You remember we talked about that. You said if it was your case, you'd put him on first, and that's what she did. Started with
Yeah.
him, ended with Hermosillo and Nick Ballens, who have strong evidence. What did you
Yeah.
think of Lori's cross of Brandon?
I think Lori, once again, is her own worst enemy. Uh, Brandon, Brandon is a very strong man of integrity who was devastated, not just by his divorce, because he's clearly a devout man of faith who believes in family and believes in living by a certain standard, right? He's not perfect, none of us are, but he holds these things deeply. And when you talk to him, that shows. I think Lori's filter doesn't let her see people the way others do. And I think she just failed to connect the dots that the jury believed this man, that he was telling the truth, and that the trauma he suffered, not just in his divorce, but in the destruction of his family, in the murder of somebody who he cared about, Charles Vallow, in the murder of two children that he knew, that played with his kids, that babysat his kids, that lends itself to somebody who's going to speak with authenticity, compassion, and integrity. She grossly underestimated him, and her cross showed that. And the more she tried to attack Brandon Boudreaux, the bigger hole she dealt. I think her treatment of Brandon showed her motives, showed her depth of sort of disdain for him. And I think after Brandon's testimony, candidly, I think the jury, it was done.
Yeah, it
She's
seemed
her own worst enemy.
a lot of people seem to comment that she kind of ran out of gas as the trial went on. It just kind of unraveled. Um, what can you say about the appeal in Idaho? Have you had a chance to read it?
Yes, I have. Those are issues we expected to see. That the defense has got to come up with something. I think for Lori's point of view, her desire to have the counsel of her own choice is a legitimate issue to raise. It is not well-founded. Judge Boyce, in my opinion, made an excellent record. The state had filed a couple of motions with regard to the conduct and our concerns with the conduct of her previous defense counsel, because we were concerned about a couple of different issues, conflict and potentially ineffective. Those are very unusual motions to file on behalf of the state. It's not something we take lightly. We didn't even ask the court to technically remove him. We asked the court to do an inquiry. And Judge Boyce did an inquiry and did it over a period of time. So there was lots of factors, some of which are public, some of which are not, that the court considered in making the final ruling. And some of the final ruling was not included in the appeal. So I'll be very interested to see the state's response, because a lot of the final reasons that Judge Boyce removed her counsel aren't actually in the pleadings. So that is my long-winded. I think if the record is really clear about why Judge Boyce did what he did, how long it took him to do it, and how much evidence he reviewed, that issue will be really well settled. The other issue is the prior 404B acts, that sort of evidence that, hey, the prior stuff somebody did is relevant to show that they did it this time, or that helps give them a motive or intent, or that their conduct wasn't a mistake in a current charge. That, again, was a hearing that was held outside the presence of the jury. It was well briefed. It was handled by Lindsay Blake. She did a thorough job in making a record. She put on appropriate evidence. The defense got a chance to cross-examine, and Judge Boyce took his time and made a written ruling that was well based on the record. I think in order for the Idaho Supreme Court to say, hey, it wasn't right, they're going to have to want to change Idaho law. And I don't think they're going to want to do that, and certainly not in this particular case.
The other thing I wanted to ask you about Arizona, this past trial, is several references to Melani Pawlowski. Trina Kay said she's under investigation. She is a co-conspirator. Stuff we had not heard publicly before. Everybody wants to know, what does that mean?
Well, Trina Kay was being very honest with the court and the defendant that technically, as long as the statute of limitations, the time you have to bring the charges, hasn't expired, an investigation or charges could come. For the charge of conspiracy to commit murder in Arizona, that statute of limitations is unending. It goes on for life. So in theory, if new evidence comes forward, Melani Pawlowski could be charged 20 years from now. So Trina was being honest with the court and explaining, like, it's still open. Candidly, it's always going to be open. But realistically, I have never seen a person in a conspiracy charged years later. It would be highly, highly unusual for charges to come down at this time against a member of a conspiracy when the principal has already been charged. Lori Vallow is Lori Vallow, Chad, Alex, who can't be charged, were the principals. Melani Boudreaux was the motive, and that we put that forward in Idaho. She is probably one of the reasons Brandon was targeted, but she is not. It is very unlikely that she would be charged at this date and time. And so I think the prosecutor was being candid with the court, was letting the defendant know, hey, look, it's still possible. What that does for the court is let the court know that if the defendant tries to bring in Melani Pawlowski or Boudreaux, or if somebody else, were to try to bring her in, Melani Boudreaux has rights. The state couldn't bring Melani Boudreaux in the court as a witness without cutting her a deal or giving her, by that I mean giving her immunity. So Melani couldn't be a witness for the state once they're identified as the target of investigation and charges without a deal, immunity. Lori couldn't bring her in because Melani Boudreaux would have the right and would be advised by counsel to take the fifth. And so Trina was letting the court and the defendant know, hey, we can't bring her in without prejudicing the proceedings and or Melanie's rights. So what she said was lawyer speak for why Melanie couldn't come in. It is in theory possible Melani Pawlowski could be charged. Realistically, I have never seen it in a case involving co-conspirators that the principals are indicted and then 4 or 5 years later, other members of the conspiracy are indicted. Never seen it.
Right. So it could have been if the other members had been indicted first, the principal could get indicted down the line. But to
Yes.
go after the lesser players, it might be unusual. Well,
Yeah.
interesting. Okay. Anything you want to add, Rachel?
No, I'm very pleased for Brandon because he's deserved this case in many respects began with him and his work with Kay. He's the one who first, in my opinion, connected the dots between Tammy and him and Charles. And he and Kay really worked with law enforcement to get them to help them see it in context. So there's so many people who were really good heroes in this situation, that there were good people who stood up, and Brandon's certainly one of them.
And undoubtedly, I will be calling on Rachel again in the future for future trials because there are many things that, happen in court. They throw out rules, they throw out laws, they throw out all sorts of stuff. And you're just kind of left wondering, what are they talking about? So thank you, Rachel. Always nice seeing you. Now to the interview that I am excited to bring you, Marianne Robb. She's been was a cop for 34 years and was on the clock the day that Charles Vallow called back in early 2019. I believe it was January or February when she got a call that he needed some help. And not only that, months later, after she left that call and, nothing came of it that she knew of, she got called to Brandon Boudreaux's house for a report of a shooting. And she ended up taking the stand last week in the trial, shared her experience about what went on there. And now she's doing something pretty interesting. It's separate from the trial, but to help other officers who experience unique or bizarre or unusual situations. I'd never heard of it before. Reached out to Marianne today. She said, yeah, I'd love to talk. Come on over. So here is our interview. All right, well, here I am with Marianne Robb. If you watched the Lori Vallow Daybell trial with Brandon Boudreaux over the past week or so, you saw her on the stand. She's also been in some body camera police videos that have been released over the years. And she's one person who I've been really interested in interviewing just because of those videos and because she was involved in this case and also once she took the stand and testified. So Marianne, so good to see you.
Well, thank you.
Miss Robb, I should say. You're now retired from the police department, over 30 years in law enforcement, so you saw a lot.
Yes. Oh, yes.
Did you ever see anything like this case?
Not at all. This was a very interesting case.
Let's go back to when you first got involved. It was actually while Charles Vallow was still alive, right?
That is correct, yeah.
What happened? Tell me about that.
Well, we got a call of a gentleman that was at one of our hotels in Gilbert, just off of Val Vista and the freeway, and he wanted us to do a welfare check on his kids and his ex-wife, Lori Vallow. So I get to the scene, and I had my partner there, and our sergeant was on his way. And I spoke with this gentleman, later found out it was Charles Vallow, and he was explaining that his ex-wife had some mental issues, and he was worried about his children's welfare with her. And supposedly she was staying at the hotel. He wanted us to go up to the hotel room, knock on the door, maybe go in, check the welfare of her and the kids. And I said, well, we can knock on the door, but we can't just go into a room. There's no reason for it. Well, we did a little bit more investigation, come to find out the kids were already in school. So we didn't have to worry about the kids, they were safe. And so we had to, where's Lori? Well, he was looking to do an involuntary committal on her because he felt that she had some kind of mental problems, if that's it.
Like religious delusions?
Well, that I didn't know.
Okay.
It was more, she just had mental breakdowns. And he just said that she is basically talking kind of weird, but I didn't know anything about this religious part on that. And he said he wants to get her help because, again, he's in fear of if his kids are living with him. Now, he did explain that he lives in Texas now. He was only coming here. He just got off a plane, went to Sky Harbor Airport, just got in from there, and that he was just checking on his kids and spend some time with them. So I explained to him that, no, we can't go up to the room. We can't just break in and check on her welfare. We can knock on the door, but that's it. I said, but there is another way. You can get an involuntary committal through the county, Maricopa County, and that's through Community Bridges. Get an involuntary committal. If a psychiatrist signs off on it, we'll get the paperwork. We'll go. Now, she lived in Chandler. So we told them, when you get the paperwork, go to Chandler PD, and they will go to the house, pick her up, and they will do what they call a 72-hour hold or an evaluation on her. Mm-hmm. So when we talked about that, my sergeant arrived, and I basically let them take over the talking to Charles. Right. And I just stayed back. So I just know that he left. I know he was going to go down to Community Bridges to go get the involuntary committal. That's where he says he was headed. So that's as far as we went on that call with him. I never had any interaction with him again. I, again, had no idea who he was, who Lori Vallow was. Everything was happening in Chandler. And that was the only interaction I ever had with him.
Did it seem like kind of a routine call?
Yes, very.
Versus the calls you get all the time. It's he was worried about his wife. She needed mental help. You check on Tylee and JJ. They're okay. They're in school. And it was more like, this is what you need to do. Go do it.
Exactly. I was on the crisis intervention team, the CIT team. So I knew I would get a lot of these type of calls. And I knew that what he was asking for was an involuntary committal. Great. No problem at all. I explained the steps that he needed to take. And the last I talked to him, he was headed down to Community Bridges to fill out the forms and do what is necessary to get an involuntary committal for Lori.
Do you remember when you learned he had been killed?
Yeah, I did when I did the investigation with Brandon Boudreaux.
Okay, so let's fast forward to that.
Okay.
So that's in October. You're working and you get a call from dispatch saying someone's been shot at?
Well, yeah, it was shots fired. And they explained that the victim, who I didn't know who it was at the time, was driving home. And as he was about to turn into his driveway on a street, that there was a green Jeep that was parked on the roadway. And the victim saw the back window of the Jeep pop open. And he saw this long gun, this gun, kind of coming out of the back of the Jeep, and then he heard a loud bang. Said that the victim, or reporting party, he drove west to the next street and then stopped. And when he did that, he saw the green Jeep go quickly past him, speeding past him, down a couple of the side streets in this neighborhood. He followed the Jeep until the Jeep went south on one of the neighborhood streets to where the only place that could have been is it could have came out onto Pecos. So the reporting person said that he went back into his driveway and was waiting for the police at the time. Now,
and you're getting all this from the dispatcher?
This is all coming from the dispatch. Now, we're thinking, BB gun, what right. Could it have been? It could, maybe a BB gun, some kids maybe be out there, not a paintball gun, but a pellet gun. We didn't know because he said something about his window shattering, but that was it. Mm-hmm. Okay, let's check it out. So I drove up to the house. He was kind of out on the phone. He was just about right on the street, just out on the street, maybe a couple feet from the sidewalk. So I get out of my patrol car, I walk up to him, and I says, well, hey, what's going on? And he explained that what happened is he was coming back into his driveway, driving into the driveway, the green Jeep, the window go up, and then he said that he saw that it looked like a muzzle. So he didn't know if it was like a silencer or whatever. He just says he was like a muzzle. And then he heard a loud bang, and that's when the window shattered. Well, it freaked him out. He didn't want to go into his house, so that's why he sped off down south or west on his road, and then parked on the next street over and just stopped and got on the phone and called 911 right away.
Yeah.
And that's when he said that the green Jeep passed him. Now, he knew they had Texas plates. Like, okay, great, okay. And he followed the Jeep out to the just before his street that he lived on, Phelps. And he saw the green Jeep and he figured, okay, it's gone, it's long gone. And then that's when he went into, his driveway and basically waited for the police to arrive.
So you go over to the car, right?
Yes.
When you get there, you go to the car, and I think either you testified or I saw on the body camera footage where you said, I think this is the real thing. This is real, like not a BB gun.
Oh, yeah. When I saw that bullet hole, no, it's not a BB
How big
gun.
was it?
I'm going to say it was, and I don't know. I didn't measure. I know the other guys measured, but maybe...
Size of a quarter?
No. Maybe a nickel.
Okay.
A little bit bigger than a nickel, but definitely wasn't a quarter. And I looked at it, I'm like, okay, first of all, I knew this was definitely a rifle. It matched what he said he described that was in the back of the Jeep. Mm-hmm. That was the long barrel, and then when I said okay, and then you look at the hole in the Jeep or the Tesla frame, you're like, oh yeah, this is definitely a rifle round. When Lori asked me, well, how big do you think it was or what kind of caliber? Well, I shoot a 30-06. I've shot a 7 mag, and I would say it's as big as, I would say, a 30-06 round. It was a pretty good size round.
And then when you tell him this is real, that's when you testify that he started to shake. I mean, he hit him, right?
It did. He was kind of listening to me. I was kind of talking in a way talking to myself,
right.
Talking to my camera and going, yeah, this is definitely a bullet hole. And I'm kind of doing everything. I didn't want to freak him out.
Right.
In time, we were going to talk about it, but right now, let me just do my investigation before I make any decisions, any assumptions. It's like, let's get the evidence. Let's see what I have. So I went and I'm kind of using my flashlight and I'm using my pen to try to see the trajectory, if I could say it right, of where the bullet could have gone. Which way did it travel through the car? Did it actually exit the car? So that's why I was using my pen, just to kind of see which way it traveled. And I'm doing all that. And I'm like, yeah, so he's hearing me say this. Mm-hmm. So I told him, I says, hey, I'll be right back. I go to my patrol car. I get on the phone. I talk to my partner, because we were sitting together when we got the call. And when I went and talked to him, I said, and you could hear it on the phone on my body cam, yeah, this isn't a BB gun. This is a bullet. Somebody did shoot at him. So I asked him if he'd come to the scene. We need to now make this a crime scene. We've got something. Again, still, I didn't know anything about Charles Vallow, Lori Vallow, whatever happened in Chandler. I didn't know any of this.
Right.
I just said, okay, what enemies do you have? Who did you make mad that they would try to do this to you? So get out of my patrol car, or get back out. And my fellow officer, my partner, shows up, and he's talking to Brandon, and I walk up, and I'm, writing notes and everything. And that's when I said, we're all looking at the bullet hole and everything. And that's when Brandon says, I need to sit down. Because I'm asking him some questions. He goes, give me a minute. I just need a minute. And then he sits down. And I'm like, that's when I said, do you want a chair? Do you want me to call anybody for you? Do you want a bottle of water? What do you need? Mm-hmm. Because I think it was hitting him at that point. But I wasn't getting all excited. Oh my gosh, it's a bullet hole, and it almost hit you, and it's only 2 inches above. That's not what I do. That's not what a police officer does in an investigation. We have to keep everything calm. Yeah, do we have a possible attempted homicide? Yeah, I would say so. But you don't say that. We contact supervisors. We explained what we had. Supervisors showed up. We roped off the scene with crime scene tape. We were calling in detectives. We were calling in more officers to canvass the area, see if any of the neighbors had any door cameras or any kind of cameras on their house. So at that point, we knew we had a crime that occurred.
You said, do you have any enemies? And you remember what he told you?
Little bit. It's been a while, but I looked at the body cam, but he made a comment about his soon-to-be ex-wife, Melani, and her aunt and brother, and they were mad about him helping Charles with the court case. And I think it was for the child custody.
Yeah.
So, and I'm like, okay, and he said, and then he explained how Lori and her brother Cox, Alex Cox, killed Lori's husband, Charles. And I'm like, okay, and I said, where did this happen? He says, in Chandler. Okay, still didn't hit me.
Yeah, you're not even thinking.
Not even thinking. I'm like, okay, it's Chandler.
Right.
Okay, great.
Right.
Well, then I would say that next time I talked to him, he explained more about Melani and her aunt, Lori Vallow, and Charles, and they started talking about the child custody of the kids, and that I want to say that Charles came in from Texas to go see his children, and I'm thinking, wait a minute, it hit me, wait a minute, Charles Vallow came in from Texas to check on his kids. Oh, wow. And a light bulb finally went off. I'm like...
Was it right there at that scene?
It was, but it was later.
Later.
Yeah.
But you knew that morning.
Oh, I knew that morning. It was when I was talking to, went back. Detectives, everybody were there. So I was kind of, calming down a little bit, and I was writing all my notes. But when he explained that to me, it was like, holy cow. I interviewed him, and I don't remember how many months ago or how many weeks before that. I'm like, I talked to him. He's the one who wanted the involuntary committal on Lori, and when she was staying in Gilbert. It floored me that this all happened. I don't remember how many months ago. I want to say maybe a couple of months ago.
Yeah, I think it was earlier in the year, like January, February, maybe.
Okay.
I mean, at least 6 months, because he was killed in July.
Okay, must have been because I think I was wearing, because when I interviewed him, I remember seeing body cam, I think I was wearing long sleeves.
Long sleeves, so I think it was January,
yeah,
February.
Okay. So it hit me.
10 months earlier, 9 months earlier.
Yeah, it blew me away. I'm like,
did you say anything to Brandon? Like,
oh, no. Yeah, that's something, no. I would never say that.
Right.
Because I might talk to my fellow officers off camera.
Right.
But there is no way in the world I would ever tell Brandon about that. There's no reason for it.
Right. So then you realize you responded to the Charles call. He's now dead. And now you're here at this scene, and it looks like this young man has been shot at and attempted to be killed. But at that point, you give it to the detectives?
Yes. Yeah. The supervisor said he assigned me to, after we set up the crime scene, Brandon had a friend come in, a couple of his business partners. So they arrived, and what we did was, because we had the crime scene and now the detectives are taking over, we had Brandon and his two friends move across the street onto the neighbor's lawn outside of the crime scene. So my job was just hang with them in case they needed anything or they had questions or anything like that. So I just sat with them or stood with them. And then detectives took over, and then I was pretty much done with the case. And they took over. So if the supervisor had a question for me, great, fantastic. But I was pretty much done with the initial, Now I'm sitting back, and in case anything is needed, that's when I would help them out, pretty much.
So do you remember when you found out that the children were missing? JJ and Tylee.
I don't remember ever getting that information.
Do you remember finding out that they were dead?
Oh gosh, yeah. I was sick because I knew that the investigation was before that happened, I knew that she moved up to Idaho and met this Chad Daybell guy, and then next thing you know, Chad Daybell's wife was killed, and then Chad and Lori got together, and I'm like, wow,
so
okay.
You're learning all this stuff.
Oh, I am.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm hearing this, and this was just maybe a month or so after Brandon's deal.
Right.
I'm starting, because the name Vallow starts coming up, you hear on the news.
Right.
So I don't watch the news, but I would put it little blips. I would hear little blips
Right.
on what's going on. And then you hear that the kids are missing. And I guess that Charles, I believe it was, or a family member, I think the grandmother or grandfather, was contacting Gilbert PD on some things, and of course Chandler, trying to look, where are the kids? I guess Lori said they were here in Arizona visiting.
Right, a friend, yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, it was just going crazy, so people were trying to contact this friend and everything else. I was not involved in any of those when they came to Gilbert for that. Okay. That was more North Gilbert. But I was just listening in, and then all of a sudden they said, the kids are missing. And then they arrest Lori and Chad coming back from Hawaii and all, and I'm like, okay, this is screwed up. Something is wrong with this. And then you hear they found the kids, and that was sickening. That was, I mean, I was sick. My heart just bled for the grandparents. Mm-hmm. And these poor kids. They're innocent little kids that never should have happened. So, you've got feelings, and as a cop, I have things that I want to say, but you can't say them. You can think them, though. Right. And I just felt really bad. The grandparents, why did they have to do that? Just give them to the grandparents. And that's it. And go live your life with Chad and have a wonderful life. Do whatever the heck you want to do. Just let these kids grow up and have their life. Right. So, yeah, heard about that. She gets arrested. Chad gets arrested. And I'm like, great, fantastic. I never would have thought that we were going to have trials down here.
Really?
Because they were already found guilty. And again, in my line of work, I deal with tragedy, and I deal with stress and all kinds of things every day. I don't want to watch the news. What's on the news? 99.9% bad. You're lucky if you have one good, happy story. And that's not something I do. I would rather watch comedies. I'd rather watch other things on TV other than tragedy and news. So I just knew little blips that they were found guilty. She's now, 3 consecutive life terms. Right. Fantastic, great.
Yeah, so you weren't doing a deep dive following every detail of it.
No, I had no desire to do that.
So you find out she's found guilty of 3 life terms, he's sentenced to death, and you think...
Oh, good.
Yeah, you didn't know that?
No, I did not know that. I thought he was still... I had no idea if his trial ever...
It happened. He went all the way to trial, and a jury found him guilty and then gave him death penalty.
Good.
In Idaho. She was up for death penalty, but they took it off the table because of some procedural type stuff. Okay. But so you're thinking, okay, they're doing the trials in Idaho. They won't bring it down here. No, she's already found guilty. And then I'm thinking, yeah, there were crimes here, but, she's already found guilty. Why, I hate to say it, but why waste taxpayers' money bringing her here, letting her do a show here, basically, and not spend the rest of her life in jail up there in Idaho? Well, county attorney explained it, and it's totally understandable. I just wasn't looking at it that way.
the family of Charles Vallow should get closure. They should see justice happen. Totally understand it. Brandon needs justice. He needs to see this all the way through and get closure. So I said, that makes total sense. I'm not looking at it that way. I'm looking at this is going to be a circus for her. And it was. You know, she was having a ball. And it was just that, okay. And I didn't really follow the case with her, with the murder of Charles. Because that was Chandler. You know, again, I didn't really follow that one. And then when I got subpoenaed for Brandon's case, I says, okay, that makes total sense that I'll be in part of dealing with Brandon's case.
Right. And you've testified in trials before.
Oh, numerous, yeah.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
So were you nervous at all, or?
I was a little bit because it was 5 years ago. I've been retired almost 4 years. And I had to really look at my body cam. You know, this was a weird case. And a lot of times, officers will remember cases that are either weird or very stressful or very sad. Unfortunately, in the back of our mind, we remember certain cases. I remember the case, but I didn't remember specifics. So I really had to kind of study up on what exactly I did throughout that case.
And then you were able to do that when you heard she was her own attorney and would be cross-examining you. What did you think?
It was humorous. There are a lot of people that try to represent themselves, and it never works out. Whether it's traffic court or criminal court, it's kind of, I hate to say it, but I have to say it, and I can't, I'm retired. It's comical. These people have no clue on the law. And I don't know why they even think they can try to represent themselves. But again, Lori was definitely a different type person. And what she was doing was she had a smile on her face the whole time. She had this weird smirk on her face the whole time that she didn't care. She loved the limelight. She enjoyed that. She didn't care if she was probably convicted or not. She just was having a ball. And that kind of irritated me that they allowed her to basically for, 2 months? About approximately 2 months this trial here in Arizona.
Combined, right?
Yeah, combined. That wearing regular clothes, wearing makeup, having her hair done, and just having a fun time in court. And you just kind of want to laugh in a way. You're like, this is entertainment almost for her. And you laugh because of what she's doing, and like you're gonna embarrass yourself in court. But you're pissed off that the taxpayers' money, and she is not sitting behind I don't know what jail cells are, maybe a 10 by 10 room, sitting there in a jail cell. No, she's parading around on TV and, trying to represent herself on these cases.
That's interesting you said, because we couldn't see her face. We saw the back of her the whole time she was questioning you. So from your perspective as a witness, you're seeing her face. She was smiling at you?
Well, she was smirking. She had a smirk. She had this weird smirk on her face the whole time. And then she'd look down.
She was trying to trip you up? Or just it was just her pretending to be an attorney and doing...
That's it. She had in my own experience as a police officer for 34 years, dealing with hundreds of thousands of people, this was just a joke. I think she was oblivious to what was even happening. She was just in her own little world, and she just came up with questions that were simple questions on a few of them. She just looked at my police report. So she was just smirking and just going on like it was an everyday occurrence. It wasn't that, it just seemed like it wasn't that she was like, oh, I'm going to try to trip her up. I'm going to try to do this. It wasn't. I mean, all the questions were pretty much easy questions to answer, Or if I could look at, like she said, a pukey green car, and I'm like, I don't remember saying pukey. And of course, look at my police report. It was green. It was no pukey. So she was just coming up with stuff. But of course, the hearsay, the county attorney objected to that, sustained, great. But no, I don't think she was trying to trip me up at all.
So what did you think when you heard that it took the jury less than 30 minutes?
13 minutes, that was a record. I want to say, now it might not be. It might even be.
But in your experience?
In my experience, that's a record. That it was that quick to get a conviction. But no, she had no witnesses, but there was no witnesses that she could even call that I know of.
Right.
So I heard it was just really quick on her part, and then the jury came back really quick.
Very short.
Yeah.
Why do you think people are so fascinated by this case? You've done cases for 34 years, you know. What is it about this one that has the whole world watching, and Netflix docuseries and...
I don't know. I'm not sure on that. It's kind of the Jodi Arias case. You know, everybody was all... No. That was a Mesa case.
That was Mesa.
Actually, okay. Where I live, that was only a few miles from where I live.
Oh, wow.
In Mesa. But no, that was a Mesa case. It's like watching a thriller movie, if this makes any sense. And you might want to cut and paste this part, because I'm really at a loss on this one.
Because you yourself, you're not into it. This was
no,
your job.
And that's
this
the
was
thing.
Real life.
Now,
so maybe you don't know why they're into it.
No, I don't want to be part of this kind of thing. Like I said, I see so much drama, so much horrible tragedy at work. I don't want to come back, but I think people that don't deal with tragedy all day long for 34 years, this is a little excitement in their life. And I apologize. I don't mean to make anybody mad, or, you know, I'm not...
dissing them or...
dissing the folks. I'm not doing any of that. I'm just, you know, kind of looking at it as a police officer. I like happy stuff. I don't want the sad. Also, I think people made sure, because of what she did to her kids and to Charles and to all these other people, they wanted to make sure that she got what she deserved, that the innocent folks got the justice. And it would have been great if she did get the death penalty. But I think they wanted to support the family of the kids, of Charles, of Brandon, and say, all right, good, you know, she's going to get what she deserves.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I mean, people love thrillers.
Right.
And, I mean, this is like a movie. You know, it's real life. It's craziness, but you don't, and I'm glad that there aren't these types of cases every year, every week. You know, it's few and far between. I mean, at least at what we know. Maybe somewhere there is a lot more cases like this. But I'm glad we don't have these kind of cases all the time. And it's sad that we even have to deal with these kind of cases. But, you know, unfortunately, there's people out there that, you know, oblivious to other folks. I don't know how to explain it.
Narcissistic. They don't care about anyone else.
Yeah, they don't.
Right.
It's just them and whatever they are in their minds that they are being either told or what they believe. That is the one and only thing. And if what their religion is, and or if there is whatever their belief is, then they're going to continue. They're not going to look at, wait a minute, is that right or wrong? There is no right or wrong with these folks.
Yeah. Do you miss police work?
I miss my guys. I miss my team. I miss the folks that I work with. And actually, I miss the citizens. The citizens were wonderful with us. You know, they were so pro-police. And I love the citizens. I don't miss the politics. and a lot of the administration, and I don't miss that, but I really do. I miss the citizens, and I really do miss my guys that I work with.
But you are keeping busy, from what you were telling me before the interview. Do you want to talk about that?
Well,
I
can.
You started a really unique thing, in my opinion, that for police officers who experience abnormal experiences. Tell me about that.
Exactly. My partner, Dave Rich, who is also a retired police officer from Gilbert, we started an organization called UAP PD, Unidentified Anomalous Phenomenon PD for Police Department. And we started this organization because we know that there are law enforcement officers and first responders that have seen things that they can't explain. And the things that they see is, could it be a light in the sky that does some weird things that are like, oh, what just happened? Or maybe a paranormal experience. When they go, whether on a call, on duty, off duty, they see something and they can't explain that. Or if they see what we call a cryptid, which might be a skinwalker, a Bigfoot, something like that. They see something, they don't talk about it because of the stigma. They don't want to be considered, oh, that's a crazy cop. And that they will be ridiculed by their fellow officers, by their supervisors. So they don't say anything about that. And it stresses them out. So we want them to understand that there is what I call a safe zone for law enforcement, first responders to come talk to us, share their experiences with us, know that we are there to be there with them. They're not crazy. They're not going to lose their career, that they can safely talk about their experiences and, again, know that there's somebody in their corner.
Yeah, because you could think if you experience something like that, you're going to say, people are going to think I'm nuts. People are going to think I'm crazy, and I don't want to. I'm nervous to talk. But if you have a place like your organization,
right.
Where can people get more information about that?
Well, they can come onto our website, which is uap-pd.com. Okay. You got to put that little dash in between UAP and PD. We do have a Facebook page also, UAP PD. We do have where it says contact us at the bottom of our website. Please contact us. If someone does not feel comfortable talking to us over the phone, I'll be more than happy to travel wherever I need to go in the U.S. To meet with these folks one-on-one and get their story from them.
Have you had officers actually contact you?
We've had quite a few. We've got about 60 stories right now.
Wow.
And a lot of them are stories that are from the 90s, the 2000s, 2010s, because there was no place for them to go. And they've held on to that story for that many years. Here's 2025. This was 1995. And there was no place, and it stressed them out. Right, and it just kept it inside of them. We definitely want people to contact us. We know that there are law enforcement officers out there, first responders, that have held on for stories for so many years because there wasn't anywhere to go and share their encounters with somebody that is on the same level, that is also a law enforcement officer. One of the case in points that we tell people is my partner actually had a case where he investigated an incident that happened in Gilbert. He did a thorough investigation. He wrote a report. But the next day, he was called upstairs by a sergeant. He was ridiculed by the sergeant. He was told he was a liar. He was making this stuff up.
Can you say what was in the report?
It was a 911 call. It was something that called 911 into our police department from a high school that he was a school resource officer in. This happened at 10 o'clock in the morning on a Saturday. We have the video, the surveillance video from 6 a.m. to after the officers got to the school to go do a check. There's nobody there, period. I mean, absolutely nobody there. He did a thorough investigation to find out, okay, was somebody making a joke? Did somebody get into maybe the phone lines that are out by the street? No, there were cobwebs all through there, so nobody got in there. Could they have gone to another building and used a phone from another classroom? Nope, that didn't happen. So we've also had the voice analyzed. It wasn't a human voice. So what could it have been? 2017, there's no CG, there's no AI. So you're like, what could it have been? So he did what he could do. And to get called upstairs and be told a liar when this sergeant had the video and the audio. He's not lying. So for 6 years, my partner had to keep quiet in the fear of if somebody ever brought it up, would he lose his job? He had a young family. He needed that 6 years. He needed to be able to retire. So he kept it inside. The stress interfered with his family life, with his health, with his career. But after, the 6 years, 2023 occurred, and we started talking about the incidences that happen with law enforcement, where they have something that they can't explain. I mean, you get the pilots now, you hear about this stuff going on with the military pilots and commercial, where they're starting to talk about it. Not a lot, but they're starting to. Well, law enforcement is not talking. They're still not talking.
Name of the website again?
It's uap-pd.com.
Okay. Fascinating.
So,
well, Marianne, thank you so much for chatting with me. Is there anything that you want to add?
No, I thank you for doing this. It was a strange case, and I appreciate all the follow-up you're doing, because I know people would like to know, what has happened. Okay, the court cases are done. I'm assuming you're going to go further and see everything that go until she's in that jail cell. Right. I'm assuming you're going to continue, her steps on what she does.
The appeals and all that.
Yes, and I know she'll be convicted sometime in July. Yes, so I appreciate you keeping up with this story, and I know that the folks out there following the story, if it was just not for you, they would have no clue. And I do appreciate you coming out from Idaho and doing this with us, and I appreciate your time here.
And again, my thanks to Marianne. We had such a good conversation, and she has done a lot to serve her community over the years. And check out that website if you're interested in learning more about the other things that she was talking about as far as the police who experience unusual circumstances. All right, I've been waiting for this. I wanted to share this bit with you. I asked you last night to send me 10-second clips of what you thought was the determining piece of evidence in this trial. Like, what really sealed the deal for Lori Vallow to be found guilty. And here are most of the videos that you all sent in. I couldn't fit them all in, but here are most of them.
Hi, I'm Tanya from Oakland, California, and for me, it was the text connection between Lori and Alex, as well as the Jeep parts and the modification and the storage unit.
The key piece for me were the timestamps of everything, the tinted window appointment, restaurant receipt, LPR hit, storage unit footage, phone calls, Ring doorbell, everything.
Hey Nate, what caught my attention was that Alex went through Holbrook on his travels to and from the valley, clearly trying to stay unseen.
Hey, so glad that Brandon got his justice. It was the storage unit information, the tire, the seat going in and out that made the most difference, I think.
Nate, Stephanie here, formerly from Nampa, Idaho. I believe it was Lori herself who showed her two colors in court that convicted her, showed that she is a liar and a
Hi Nate, it's Julia and Leon from Italy. For me, it was definitely the video of Lori and Chad taking the wheel and the seat out of the car.
Lori holding Alex's phone for that amount of time, and the storage unit footage, all dead giveaways. Justice for Brandon, let's go.
My pivotal moment was seeing that tire being rolled into the storage unit. I saw that symbolic of Lori rolling right back to prison.
The key points that my mom and I would pick are Lieutenant Hermosillo and Brandon getting justice. Thank you.
Without a doubt, the most important pieces of evidence were the video footage of the storage unit and the pictures of the Jeep showing the different colors.
I'm tracked from the Netherlands, and to me the damning evidence was when Alex used the burner phone in Arizona and Lori called his regular phone in Idaho to fake an alibi for him.
The last two testimonies with the videos and the cell phone movements showed Lori's involvement and resulted in a guilty conviction of conspiracy.
Hi Nate, June from Scotland. I think the two things that stood out are the fact the storage unit was in name Ryan and they never reported the Jeep missing.
Greetings, Albuquerque, New Mexico. This is Vance, and I think it's always Hermosillo. He puts the icing on the cake and she can't wiggle her way out of it.
Nate, Lori at the storage unit put the nail in her coffin, but Alex, his receipts, and connecting his email to the burner phone.
The videos of Lori, Chad, and Alex coming and going with the missing tire and seat from the crime scene and the proof from their phones at towers gave the verdict for justice.
10 seconds or less, definitely the cell phone data from the pings at Walmart to Lori having his phone for 3 days and it didn't move. Come on.
Hey, Nate, what's up, man? Great seeing you again on Monday. So I'm sitting in court Monday afternoon right behind Kay Woodcock. And as Lori's cross-examining Detective Pillar, Kay kind of keeps turning around and looking at us and rolling her eyes like, here we go again. And then she finally just kind of like laid her head back like this, like, oh, I give up. So I think she sums up the way that we were all feeling during that cross-examination and the trial in general at times.
Hi, Nate. Laurel from Glendora, California. The strongest piece of evidence for me was the storage unit video. That video wrapped up this case tighter than Lori's Shih Tzu ponytail.
You guys are the best. We have the best viewers. I tell my wife all the time, like, we have some really fun international, national viewers that just give us so much to talk about. I want to thank newspapers.com for sponsoring us over the past few weeks. They have been a great partner, and I've learned so much about them. I've learned so much from you about what you are finding on newspapers.com. You can log in, you can type in your name, family member's name, friend's name, whatever, and really research what there is that was printed in newspapers going back decades. They're offering 20% off if you go to newspapers.com/Nate. You can give it a try, see how it is. There's also a 7-day free trial if you want to go and explore. Big thanks to newspapers.com for sponsoring Courtroom Insider. As for the future of Courtroom Insider, next week, I believe we'll have at least one more Courtroom Insider about this case, the Daybell case. We're not done yet. We're almost done. And I know some of you are like, why do you keep talking about it? A person contacted me who's never spoken about the case that had a really key role in the case. And he's ready to talk. He wanted to do it back when I get to Idaho. And so next week, I'm hoping next week, I'm going to go interview this person. And you will hear from them. We'll do a Courtroom Insider. I don't know what day. I don't know what time. I'll let you know, though, on my social medias. Here's where you can follow me: Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, X, YouTube. Also on the Meet and the Eatons YouTube channel, you can find me there. I thought about asking Erica, and I think she would do it maybe next week too. Her and I can do a program, just kind of her intakes. She and I can do a program. Her intakes on her takes on what the past 6 years have been like, 5.5 years. And now that we're nearly done with the sentencing coming up on July 25th, get her take. So I don't know. Let me know what you think if we should be doing that. But in the meantime, again, thank you from the bottom of my heart for following every night, for commenting, for being so generous, for complimenting Peggy. Big thanks to Peggy. We don't have time to get to questions and shout outs tonight, but we'll do them next week. Peggy has been here every night. She doesn't miss it. Her husband, Glenn, is supportive. So give a shout out to Peggy and Glenn tonight. Also, all of our team back at East Idaho News who do the news of the day while I'm here. They're great. We have a phenomenal team at eastidahonews.com. They do great work. As you can tell, I've been talking so much, I probably need to rest my voice. And I want to let you know, we do have a couple of shirts left. If you bought a shirt in the past few days from our store, not our third-party store, eastidahonews.com/shop, we're going to get back. We're going to package those up. And if you want to get one too, we'll package those up next week. We'll get them in the mail to you. And we will continue to follow and bring you the latest breaking news or whatever happens. And until next time, everybody, have a great weekend. I'm Nate Eaton. This is Courtroom Insider.